Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here with Geekazine, and we have another Wirecast tutorial. Today is Wirecast 5 tutorial part 6, Desktop Presenter. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers with Geekazine. Think magazine, put in a geek. You've got Geekazine, geekazine@gmail.com. Twitter handle is Geekazine. That's how you get a hold of me. Everything is right down here. And today we're going to do another Wirecast tutorial. So basically, today I'm going to talk about Desktop Presenter because this is an actual cool feature that other programs don't seem to have when it comes to bringing in video. Usually you have to use the HDMI out from the other computer to bring it in as a secondary desktop or mirrored desktop. And then you bring it into like a Blackmagic card or something like that. And then that comes in through Thunderbolt or USB port or something like that. So, but basically with this idea, you can actually not have any type of lines run into the computer. And it's perfect for showing off a desktop. Like if you're showing off web pages or something like that. Now I have a web pages over there. In fact, I've set up the Wirecast desktop presenter over on my desktop over there, and I've actually set up a second desktop presenter over here. And of course, we can do the local desktop presenter through Wirecast. So let's go to the main screen. Now, technically, this is the desktop presenter, the local desktop presenter. But if I go down here, I have options to choose from. I can create a new local desktop, a remote desktop presenter. I can bring in the shots from my desktop, from my laptop, or other computers. Now, there's some things that you got to be very aware of when you're using desktop presenter. And that is, the more desktop presenters you have on the system, the more it's going to tax onto your computer. It's bringing video. It's trying to do a screen capture. So it's going to try and do 30 frames a second when it can. But if you've got 4 or 5 desktop presenters running, it might start to slow down a little bit. I've noticed this when I did my This Week in Google Glass. We had Luke on Skype over there, and then of course I had the desktop over here with the web pages, so I could control it and go from there. Now, if you could put everything onto one computer, that would be great. In fact, I'm going to show you how to do that. It's actually not too difficult to do if you've got a computer that has a desktop screen that's pretty big. Like, for instance, over here on my desktop, I have a 24-inch screen. So I could actually put 2 or 3 items in there. In fact, I've set it up already. This is the main scene. Now, up on the top left, top right-hand corner, I just, instead of doing a Skype video, I decided just to do a regular video. So that's running. It's an old episode of Geek Smack. On the bottom left-hand corner, we've got my Facebook, my web page, basically my Facebook page, and a cool video that I was watching of a dog chasing a turtle who was chasing a ball or something like that, and so that's how I have the desktop presenter set. Now I do have the other desktop presenter set on the laptop over here, and I'll show you that in a second. But here's I was talking with somebody, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to bring in 2 Skype calls, actually 4 Skype calls, and bring it all into Wirecast. And I said, that's going to cause a very interesting challenge, because you've got a lot of video coming into one computer, and that can, like I said, that can cause a big challenge, taxing on memory, taxing on computer speed, and then of course the internet connection. And if other things are passing through your internet connection, then you might see some slowdowns. You might see some latency. And that was the biggest problem we had, was Luke was talking, but the video wasn't showing up till like a second later. So he looked like he was dubbing himself, basically. So we've been experimenting different ways to actually set this up so he didn't have that latency, so you could actually see him move his lips when he's talking. But there's different ways to do this, and I was talking to somebody about it, and he wanted to try this. And I was thinking about this, and I thought to myself, well, if you can do the less amount of desktop connections, the less amount that the computer has to look for another connection. So if you could bring 2 people on Skype into onto one computer and have them come in, that might help with the video desktop. If it's seeing only this as opposed to two separate videos, that might help out there. So, and there is a way to actually bring two instances of Skype onto one desktop. You'll have to do stuff. We won't talk about the audio end of it. There's a way to do that through Mix Minus and through using USB audio cards. So there isn't any type of echo or feedback that happens if you've got two people on. And of course, you'll have to use like a webcam for them to see you, or they don't see you at all, and they're just going along and looking at a camera. So they have video and go from there. So lots of logistics that we're not going to get into on this video, but what we will talk about is actually connecting up and using one screen for two different things. And in this case, it's going to be what we call the Skype call, but I'm just going to use a video. And then the other half, which is a desktop presenter showing web pages and stuff like that. So let's get to it here. We're going to start over here. Like I said, I've already created the desktop with the audio and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to actually start by bringing the video over. So to bring the video over, I've got to come into the scene. And into the scene, we'll expand that a little bit so you can see what's going on here. Into the scene, you'll see, like I said, there's the desktop and there's the video. I'm going to bring this video over. Now, you can do it one of two ways. You can either crop it and enlarge it, or you can just enlarge it. So I'm going to hold down in the Mac, we use the Command key, and we click on the screen to enlarge. So I'm going to do that. And you can do this in Windows too. And then I'm going to bring it over, and I'm going to resize it. And it's a little bit of trial and error to get it to the right size. And of course, not bring out the screen. And like I said, you can cut off edges and stuff like that. But we're just gonna be very basic about this. Bring this up a little bit more. And this also works a lot better when you have a mouse as opposed to a trackpad or touchpad or something like that. So okay, that's probably the best we're gonna get here. So now I'm going to close that out, and I'm going to bring that scene of my video coming up. And so technically, if this was a Skype call, you would be seeing the other person and their Skype. And of course, the audio, depending on whether you use the desktop presenter's audio out, I find it to be lagging in, it doesn't really match up with the person too much. So I end up hooking it up into the mixing board using what's called Mix Minus, which is a way for the audio, my audio goes to the other person, but he doesn't hear himself, which is what causes the feedback. So anyway, so we could have a conversation like this where I'm talking with the other person. I'm down in the corner, he's up there, or he's looking at me right now, which is kind of interesting. But that's a simple way for you to create an image using the desktop presenter. As you can see, it doesn't look too bad when we're recording, and we're recording in 720p right here. Now I've set up a scene where I use AB, and then I have a background image. And of course, the background image is a nice picture of a bunny. So I could be talking in box one. That person could be talking in box two, and we could go from there. Now, the other thing is to actually bring in the web screen. So let's go back to this. I created a second instance of this. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to go here. This time we're going to focus on the web page. So I'm just going to do the same zoom in. There we go. On the web page rather than the video. And this is probably going to be easier to figure out from there. So you can set that up and go from there. And now we can bring in the web page. And keep in mind, this is all on one screen on a desktop presenter. So it's just basically taking the screenshot, 30 frames a second, pushing it over to you. Right now, I'm pushing 30 frames a second on the record. It's about 2,000 kilobits per second. My memory is at 66%. I just increased the memory on this MacBook to 16 gigabytes, and I put an SSD drive in. It's actually a video you can check over on youtube.com/Geekazine. as I upgraded my machine. It was something, the project through OWC. So anyway, but the whole point is the desktop is now displaying my Facebook page, and I can go over and I can talk to the person, and I have to set this to cut so it doesn't do that weird movement thing, or unless you want it, then you can do that. But I'll do cut, so it'll just switch back and forth between the two. So I could be talking to him, he could be saying something. It's like, oh yeah, let's take a look at it on the web page. There you go, and go from there. Now, Desktop Presenter, it's actually a really cool item to have because you could do so much with it. And I want to show you this because some people, they set up their Desktop Presenter and they set it up on the same network, on the same node. If your computer can actually use an Ethernet cable and wireless, a Wi-Fi connection, you can actually set up your Desktop Presenter to be running on its own network. Now, there's two ways to do it. One, if you've got an old router sitting around, or an old router, doesn't even have to be a wireless router. It's just a regular router. You want to turn the wireless off. You don't want to use the wireless for the Desktop Presenter. You want to use a hard cable. So you need Ethernet cables to do that. The other way, if you don't have the cable, if you don't have a router, you can get one of these. This is what's called a crossover cable. And the idea of this crossover cable in IT realm was back before routers were easily accessible and cost hundreds of dollars. We would create these cables to hook between two computers. And they've got a special wiring configuration to them, so they'll actually talk to each other, whereas a regular Ethernet cable doesn't really talk back and forth. So you basically set up and basically set up the IP address on both of these machines so they do talk to you. And I'm going to show you how to quickly do that. We won't get too much into it. You could do some searches on how to set up a crossover cable. But you go up on Amazon, we'll have a link in the show notes on getting a crossover cable already made. You can also make your own. It's just basically you follow the regular instructions on how to make a cable, and you just do a switch of two wires, and that turns it into the crossover cable. There's a lot of instruction on how to do that if you want to punch your own cables down. But you can buy them on Amazon for cheap too. So here's how it works. Let's go over to, there we go, this desktop. So I've already got this set up. Because this is Windows 8.1, and that'll if you try and go into the network preferences, it'll go into the Windows Metro, whatever you want to call it, screen. But we need to get to this one, the Network and Sharing Center. And you do that by going through the control panel and then going into, if we're at control panel, you'll see network, you'll say view network status and tasks, and you're right here. We're going to choose Ethernet. And of course, we see our Ethernet information. I can set this up on wireless and wired. Right now I have the wireless turned off. And I'm not going to make any major changes on this, but I will show you exactly where you need to go. From here, we go to properties. We go down to the IP version 4, TCP IP version 4, and this is what we will change. You will then check this box, use the following IP address. And usually an IP address, we can go into numbers, but usually what I use for a basic IP address, whoops, I forgot to turn on the numlock here. Let's do that again. 10 dot, we'll go 15.8.1. And then a subnet mask, 255, oops, 5, 255.0. And the default gateway, you don't need that. You don't, and the preferred DNS and alternate DNS, you don't need that too. And I think you can also do it here, advanced. It's been a while since I've done this. Yeah, you can do it right there as well. But the idea is you're setting what's called the static IP address, and you're setting this machine to be 10.15.8.1. The secondary machine, which would be on my Mac if I was to do the same thing, would be I'd go up to my network, I'd go to Open Network Preferences, and then we'd go to Ethernet, and then we'd say Advanced, I believe it is here, yeah, Advanced, we change this to Manual, and then we'll put in the IP address. I'm not going to do that, of course, because I've got stuff going back and forth here. So, and then of course I would then go 10.15.8.2, or usually 8.1 is the main machine. So you can go 10, 11, whatever the numbers, but stick around 10 or 192.168. The subnet mask should always be 255.255.255.0. But you can always, once again, this is all information you can also find up on a page or something like that, telling you how to use a crossover cable to connect two computers up. Now, once you've done that, this becomes the trickier part, because in order to do that, unfortunately, Desktop Presenter doesn't have an option to choose which network connection you'd use. So in this case, it's using the TCP IP address of my regular network, and that's fine. But as you can see, there's absolutely no way for me to choose which TCP IP address you want to go. So here's what you have to do. You have to turn off your wireless, or your secondary, the one, if you're going to use that one to bring the Skype caller in or search the internet, you got to turn that one off. You hook up your Ethernet cable, your crossover cable or router or whatever, and then hook it up to the two machines. You then set your configuration. Then you bring up Desktop Presenter. Desktop Presenter will then show 10.15.8.1 or whatever your TCP IP address will be. Once Desktop Presenter is pulled up, you can then turn on your other network connection. And then that will be used to search the internet and bring the Skype caller in or whatever. And then this one will be dedicated to go from this machine to this machine. And then it'll bring it in as Desktop Presenter. It'll be its own connection from machine to machine. So you'll have the ultimate bandwidth. If you're doing 2 to 3 Desktop Presenters, you're using a router to do that. Of course, they'll share the connection in, but this will make it so you don't have Dropbox searching on this network. In fact, you should always turn off things like Dropbox. You should turn off anything that causes an internet connection or searches for an internet connection. Antivirus, yeah, you want to have antivirus running on your computer, but sometimes you just want to not have it run while you're trying to talk to somebody on Skype, because if some major update happens, then it's going to pull it up and say, hey, major update, and it might even interrupt your conversation with the other person. So basically, these are the ways that you can bring in using Desktop Presenter, and also use it so it will become a very dedicated area for bringing in video from screen to screen. So, and of course, some of these computers, you don't have that option to do it. However, go back to Amazon. You can find USB to Ethernet plugs. If you're on a Mac, Apple makes the Thunderbolt to Ethernet. Once again, you can get a USB to Ethernet. It's a little bit slower on the USB side, especially if you have USB 2.0, but it does the job. And I don't think you'll see too many skips from there. So the best part is, once you've got that all set up, you can actually do two-person Skype connections like this one right here with a bunny in between. You can have them come up to the main screen. You can say, hey, let's look at a web page, and look at a web page and go from there. And all using one computer. And if you set up your Skype to do 2 Skypes, and like I said, you just search the interwebs, and you'll find information on how to set up a second Skype connection onto your computer. Then you can actually set off the coordinates on the screen, and you can have both people talking, and bring them up with their own lower thirds. Because that's the cool thing is, yeah, this has got lower thirds, but I can sit here and I can go and I can edit this. Let me just go back here, and I can edit this. And now I can say, okay, I want to put my own lower third. I want to do this. So I'm just going to bring up a lower third. Whoops. Yeah, just don't do it on the main screen here. Let's bring that back. I think this one. So we'll there we go. So we'll just hit the add button. Yeah, I do that a lot. So hit the add button, and then we'll put on lower third like this. We'll move the lower third down to cover that lower third, and then we'll say hello world. And of course, you can use the lower thirds that will help you with that. So it looks a little bit better. So then you go back here, and now you've got a lower third on their video, because they probably won't have a lower third on their video like this one does, and go from there. Sounds a little bit confusing, but there's a lot of great ways for you to actually bring in a desktop presenter, dedicate the desktop presenter to its own network, and be able to bring in a Skype call, be able to bring in a desktop, all within one whole area of your computer. You could probably have one computer have 2 Skype calls and the web page open. So, and all you have to do is change the settings on Wirecast, so you can, and then you create them as their own scenes. So you can bring up the guest, you could bring up an interview, a 2-panel interview like this. You need to go to the web page, you can go to the web page, and then come right back to me. Simple as that. A lot more you can do with Desktop Presenter. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My Twitter handle is Geekazine. Think magazine, put in a geek. Of course, geekazine@gmail.com, where you can go and email me questions and stuff like that. You can always also use that hashtag #GeekOut, so you can get more information. Follow that hashtag. You'll see posts from me. You'll see posts from other people, because I don't own the hashtag, but I use it a lot in Google+, in Facebook, and in Twitter. So check that all out. Jeffrey Powers here. Thanks a lot for watching Wirecast tutorials. There are 5 other tutorials, and of course I think we're gonna do about 10 in this series. And then of course, if you have any special info questions or anything like that, I do have the page where I offer help with your Wirecast, your specific use of Wirecast, over at helpouts.google.com. And just search for Wirecast. You'll see a help with Wirecast. Your first session is free. So ask a question, schedule a time, and we'll talk about what you're doing with Wirecast and how I can help you. Jeffrey Powers here. Thanks a lot for watching these Wirecast tutorials. We'll see you next time. Go over to youtube.com/Geekazine and subscribe to the channel, because that's where they'll be. You guys geek out and take care.